Welcome to the Real Estate Update Podcast, where we focus on homebuyer education because knowledge is power. I'm your host, Paul Centopani, and joining me today is Dave Meyer, Chief Investment Officer at BiggerPockets. Dave, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm excited you're here too. Now, we're going to be breaking down the Federal Reserve, its relationship with mortgage rates, and how its actions impact homebuyers. So let's start the baseline to give people a proper background. What is the Federal Reserve and what does it do?
The Federal Reserve is the central bank for the United States, and that means it's responsible for things like setting monetary policy, which is you probably associate with the federal funds rate or setting interest rate policy, and also with regulating the financial system. They come up with a lot of rules for how the banks operate in the country in an effort to provide stability and predictability within financial markets.
One of the first things I was taught when I first started covering the Fed is that it technically doesn't set interest rates. However, interest rates are intrinsically tied to its decisions. What does that mean?
So the Federal Reserve does set one interest rate. They set something called the federal funds rate. And there's a lot of detail to it, but basically what it does is sets the price that banks borrow from one another and borrow from the Federal Reserve. Now, that doesn't normally impact real estate investors or people who are getting credit cards or anything like that, but it does correlate with those things. And so where the federal funds rate is relative, is it high or low relative to historical basis, does impact things like mortgage rates or what you pay on student loans or anything else, but they do not actually control consumer rates that you and I go out and pay.
Got it. Okay. And now we're recording on June 17th. And earlier today, the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee voted unanimously to hold the federal funds rate range steady. How will that impact mortgage rates? And was there anything else noteworthy that came out of that meeting?
Yeah, I think there was definitely some noteworthy stuff. First and foremost, your first question, I don't think it's going to affect mortgage rates at all. So based on your previous question, the federal funds rate and mortgage rates, not super correlated. Like when you see the federal funds rate going up, mortgage rates do go up a lot of the time. But that's because the federal funds rates touch so many different things. Most notably, they touch bond yields. And this is not as related to real estate. I know it's a little tangential, but the important thing to know is that bond yields are much more correlated with mortgage rates than the federal funds rate. And so even though, like they said, they didn't move the federal funds rate, so mortgage rates aren't going to change. Personally, I think even if they moved it down 25 basis points, I don't think mortgage rates wouldn't have changed that much either, because mortgage rates are much more closely tied to bond yields. And we can get into that if you want to talk about the direction bond yields are going, but so wouldn't expect anything on mortgage rates. What interesting thing happened in the Federal Reserve meeting this week is that there's an indication that the next move they might make is to raise rates, not cut rates. We have been in an environment where they've been lowering rates for several years now, albeit slowly. This is a pretty big reversal over what the Federal Reserve has been predicting and forecasting over the last couple of years. Just back in March, when they met back in March, 0 of the 19 members who were sort of involved, not all of them vote, but 19 members are sort of involved in interest rate decisions. 0 people thought that there might be a rate hike this year. Now 11 of 19 think there is. So now more than half. So this is a serious indication that there might be rate hikes. Now, personally, I still think rate hikes are kind of unlikely, but I do think the Federal Reserve is trying to signal to the market that it could happen because they don't like surprising the market with these kinds of decisions. If they do, you can risk really big sell-offs in the stock market. You could risk, some negative things happening in the bond market. And so they are just trying to tell investors around the world that we don't really know which way this is going to go. Could have a hike, could have a cut. It's really wide open right now.
All right. No one knows what's going to happen. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you had mentioned that mortgage rates are more closely tied to Treasury bond yields. So is that a better indicator for people to track if they want to, try to look into their crystal ball and see which way rates are going to go?
100%. If you want to understand where mortgage rates are going, there is almost a perfect correlation between the yield on 10-year US Treasuries and mortgage rates. Now, it's not perfect. There's a little bit of an exaggeration, but they are extremely closely correlated. And so what you need to, if you want to forecast it, look at bond yields. Bond yields are notoriously difficult to forecast, though, so that's why it's so hard to predict mortgage rates. Not because we don't know that the mortgage rates are made up of 10-year U.S. bond yields and what is known as the spread. That's kind of how you get mortgage rates. But bond yields are just complicated. They are the rate that the government pays to borrow money is influenced by everything from inflation risk to recessionary risk, what's going on in the stock market, what other centralized banks are offering in terms of their bond yields. So it's immensely complicated, but they are very, very closely related. And that's why, I can make predictions about the mortgage rates very accurately, like 2 days out, because I know what happened with bond yields and the mortgage rates are going to follow. But that's about as good as accurate forecasting gets with mortgage rates.
And now for the FOMC, Kevin Warsh is the new Fed chair. He took over for Jerome Powell back in May. What sort of influence does he have and bring to the position?
Kevin Warsh taking over, super interesting thing to watch. And I think we'll see his philosophy presented at the Federal Reserve, but ultimately his job is to build consensus. There are 12 voting members on the FOMC, meaning 12 people vote on where monetary policy is going, where that federal funds rate is going to go. And so he does not unilaterally decide what is happening with interest rates. I think that is a common misconception. And so while his philosophy and beliefs about the organization will matter, he's presented ideas about changing the way the Fed thinks about inflation and how they measure inflation. But ultimately, his job is to build a consensus among his peers about which way interest rate policy should go. And although I think a lot of people going into the last couple of months felt that Warsh, because he was a nominee of President Trump, was going to really angle for lower mortgage rate or interest rates because President Trump has signaled his desire to have lower federal funds rate. We saw today that Warsh is worried about inflation and he is comfortable keeping rates where they are for the foreseeable future until inflation gets under control. So I wouldn't expect any immediate changes to what the Federal Reserve is doing because Kevin Warsh is in charge now. But I do think over time, his way of doing things, his style of leadership will matter. And we'll just have to kind of see how that influences things. But I don't think most people will notice a big change.
Now, what would it take for the FOMC to cut rates this year, or what would it take for them to raise rates?
It's all going to come down to the balance between the labor market and inflation. The Federal Reserve and their monetary policy decisions are based around what is known as a dual mandate. They basically have two things that they're trying to accomplish. Unfortunately, those two things are often in conflict with one another. Their first is trying to what they call maximize employment. So that's just trying to get the economy humming as much as possible, right? Maximum employment is a signal of a great economy. And so that's one of their jobs. The second thing that they try and do is they call it price stability, but that's basically just controlling inflation. And so those two things, ideally, they're moving in the right direction. You have great unemployment and you have low inflation. That's what we all want to see. But sometimes you don't. And you get into a situation where you have to make a choice between higher inflation or higher unemployment. And so they're constantly playing this battle. That's their whole goal with the federal funds rate, is to try and find that sweet spot where the economy is growing, but inflation is not running too hot. Right now, we're in a very strange time because inflation has reaccelerated pretty dramatically over the last 3 months. But while the labor market is doing pretty well, I think there's a lot of labor market fear. And so the direction of these two indicators are going to tell us where the federal funds rate is going. If inflation stays as hot as it is and doesn't show any signs of slowing down, I expect that we will continue to see rates where they are for the federal funds rate and potentially see that rate hike that they've started to talk about, especially if the labor market stays strong. Right now, the reason the Fed was able to hold rates steady today is because inflation is up, the labor market is doing relatively well, and so that allows them to concentrate on the second of their mandates, which is to ensure price stability. If the labor market starts to crack, though, that's where things really get hard. They'll have to make some hard decisions. But the only way, in my opinion, we see rate cuts is inflation getting under control. We need to win this battle against inflation. It's been a long battle. Before the war in Iran started, it was starting to look better. We've obviously seen food and energy prices go up pretty dramatically over the last 3 months. And we'll see. We're recording this on the 17th. There's a lot of talk about a peace deal we don't know the details of yet, but hopefully we'll start to see prices come down. And if we see some of these key inflation indicators start to come back down to earth, then a rate cut might be on the table. But I would be pretty surprised if we see that in the next couple of months. I think at this point, it's unlikely we even see it in 2026 at all.
Okay. And yeah, the FOMC, they aim for a 2% inflation rate over the long term.
That's correct. Their goal is to get inflation to 2%, which is because the economic theory says that you should have some inflation. And I know that might sound counterintuitive to some people, but the idea is that if you believe as a consumer, a business, a government, that prices are going to go up, you are incentivized to spend money and to stimulate the economy. So 2% seems like a reasonable amount to increase to have prices go up. That stimulates the economy. If you have flat prices or even declining prices, that actually incentivizes people to save their money, and that can slow down the economy. So that's one reason for the goal. The second reason the goal is 2%, again, has to do with bond yields. Bond investors, or people who lend money to the US government, want to earn a return above and beyond the rate of inflation. And so if you set the goal of, the inflation goal at 4%, then instead of the government paying 4.5% to borrow money for 10 years like they do right now, it might be 6.5% or 7%. So they want it to be a little bit inflation, but not too high, because that could cause all sorts of other problems in the economy.
Okay, simple economics. I don't understand it at all. And what other factors, aside from bond yields and the federal funds rate, what other factors weigh on mortgage rates?
Yeah, the other thing other than bond yields is something called the spread. This is really getting into more bonds and economics, but basically the way it works is mortgage rates are largely set by people who buy mortgage-backed securities. So the way that mortgages work in the United States is you go out, you take a mortgage at Chase or your local bank or whatever, and those banks don't hold on to the mortgage. They are packaged together through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and then sold off as what is called a mortgage-backed security. These are packaged and sold to investors. And so what those investors are willing to pay and what rate of return they require is really where a lot of where mortgage rates come from. And the spread is how much of a risk premium they want over a 10-year US Treasury. So if you're a pension fund, just imagine you're controlling billions of dollars in a pension fund. You have two options. You could go lend your money to the US government at 4.5%. And that's just about the safest investment in the world, right? Like, the US government they're going to pay you back. So like that's what they call the risk-free asset, 4.5%. It's the risk-free rate. If you're going to lend money to a mortgage borrower, there's more risk, because although I always intend to pay my mortgage, like risk lending to me over the US government is more risky. And so the investors demand a higher rate of return. And how much higher a rate of return is known as the spread or the risk premium. And so that is always in flux as well. It is very complicated how it's set. But basically, those are the two things. You need to know what the 10-year rate, the 10-year US bond yield is, and what the current spread is. And that's exactly what mortgage rates will be. I know this is frustrating because it is kind of the plumbing of the financial system that you're sort of required to understand to set mortgage rates. But that is why mortgage rates are so difficult to forecast. And I think unless you're like an analyst who studies this like I do, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around why rates are what they are.
Yeah, very complicated. So many factors, economic, geopolitical, that pull them in all different directions. And they are notoriously volatile and difficult to predict for that reason. Having said all that, what expectations do you have for the rest of 2026 with mortgage rates?
Yeah, I made a forecast about a year, yeah, I guess like 6, 9 months ago for 2026 that I thought rates would remain between 5.5, or would average between 5.5 and 6.5% for the year. We are definitely at the higher end of that range right now, but we're right about there. And I do think, given where things are trending, I expect that we will be in that range by the end of the year, probably in the low sixes by the end of the year, if the peace deal that we've been talking about and hearing about is actually signed and endures through the rest of the year. I think mortgage rates will come back down a little bit. Now, we talked about this before. There's sort of these two variables. I think the spreads will remain pretty good. They're pretty good right now, and will probably maybe could even compress a little bit. And I do think bond yields will come down a little bit, but not that much. The bond market will wait until inflation comes down. And from all the reports I've read, even if the Strait of Hormuz opened tomorrow, it's unlikely that we're going to see a lot of relief on energy prices. I think food costs are going to remain elevated for the rest of the year. And so it could take a while until we get a better signal on inflation. And so I wouldn't wait expecting mortgage rates to come down anytime soon.
And last question for you, Dave. What's the top advice you'd give to first-time home buyers right now?
We're in a buyer's market. That's the great news about where we are right now. I think a lot of the narrative about the housing market is that it stinks, it's not fun, there's nothing going on. That's just not really the reality. In fact, if you look at home sales, they've been about the same for the last 4 years. If you look at home buyer demand, it's actually up about 15% year over year. There's stuff going on in the housing market, even though the reality is it's not nearly as robust as it was during COVID or the years leading up to COVID. But the good thing that's happening for first-time home buyers is that you have the power, and you should take that advantage that the market is giving you right now. No, we are probably not going to see runaway appreciation. I think housing price growth is going to be slow for the next couple of years. But for the first time in 5, maybe 10 years, buyers have leverage over sellers. You have negotiating power. You have the opportunity to be patient, to be picky, to demand terms that work for you. And if you are trying to buy a home and live in it for 4 or 5 years, this is a huge advantage to you. You can finally get better terms on buying. And I really think that's an opportunity for anyone who wants to be in the housing market.
Okay. That's good advice and good things to hear for people looking right now. Dave Meyer, thank you so much for lending us your insights. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you having me.